Hi guys, good morning. So in the last session, we have started with the failover concept. Okay. About the failover, we have seen that there is two types of failover. One is your hardware failover, and second one is your interface failover. So your hardware failover, this has been divided into two types. We have active standby and active concept. While your interface failover, this is also divided into two categories. One is your LAN side failover, and second one is your one side failover. Okay, and yesterday we have seen about the active standby concept. Theoretically, we have designed the lab. Now we just need to complete and configure the lab. Okay, so let's directly jump into the lab. Okay, so this was our lab. Let's start this lab.
I have a small question, Eddie.
Yes, please tell me.
Yeah. So this ASA will be stateless firewall, right?
ASA is a stateful firewall.
Stateful.
Yeah, because ASA can maintain the connection table, right?
Okay.
Stateless firewall will be the firewall that cannot maintain the state of connection. That means kind of no connection table is there.
Okay.
Yeah. This stateless is what? This is the link that is stateless.
Okay.
So like yesterday, we have seen that we have two failover links.
Yeah, one is stateless and stateful. So
Exactly.
stateless will maintain all the IP address and all the other information.
Yeah.
And it will be
This
maintained by.
will exchange the configuration as well as the keep alive. While you're stateful, it will exchange the dynamic entries like your connection table. Okay. So first of all, we will see that you will have one stateless link only, and that time you will see that whenever, for example, when we are having only the stateless thing, so right now we are using just the stateless link. Okay. That means here only the configuration as well as the keep alive will be exchanged. Now what will happen? Let's say you're taking access and this is consider this one is your primary. And this will be active also because this is the primary unit. This one you have configured it as the secondary. And this will be on the standby mode.
Okay.
Now what if you have taken access from R1 to internet? Okay, so let's say you have done a telnet session from here to here. While the telnet session is going on, let's say this firewall goes down. So obviously your standby will change to active, but this connection, this will be dropped.
Okay.
Why? Because the connection table was not synchronized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, got it. So when we have a stateful link, In scenario, we will have active setup.
No. There will be no active. In the active, we will merge few concepts. Okay. First concept that we will merge is contexting. Second will be failover. Third will be your NAT. These three concepts combined, this concept will be what your active. Okay. So how it is going to be that in this firewall you will have two context, in this firewall you will have two context. Okay. So what will happen that let's say you have two contexts C1 and C2. Here also C1 and C2. So here in this case we will say that C1 here it will be active, C1 here will be standby. C2 here will be standby, C2 here will be active. Okay. So any of these firewall goes down, let's say this firewall goes down. So what will happen? This standby will change to active. And this is why it is known as the active concept, because one firewall for two different contexts, it will be acting as a active.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So this has nothing to do with these links.
And this stateless link, will it be single link? Because like again, it will become a single point of failure. So we'll be having
We can have redundancy for this also. Like I said, that you can use one link for the stateless, another link also you can use for the stateless. Okay, for the redundancy. And the best way will be that you will be using a single link as a stateless and stateful. And then one more link you will be using that also stateless and stateful. So if one of the link goes down, then the second will automatically take place. Okay. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Okay.
So here, are we contexting in the ASAs?
No, right now, no contexting. Right now, simple active standby. Contexting will be there in the active concept. Because there we have two firewalls, and for these two also we require the HA concept. So we will be using here the contexting. So let me see. Okay, we have to do the configuration. Let me open that. So first of all, let's do the configuration for R1. And even before that, we must talk about IoT. So here, simply it means what? Redundancy. Okay. Some other names for this thing is redundancy or tape. Okay. So HA is used to prevent or let's say to provide redundancy so that if a device fails in the network, then the main function. Basically, the communication should not stop. So the failover is of two types. Two types. What are those two types? Number one, hardware failover. And even this, it has been divided into active standby. And second concept in this thing is active. And then the second type is your interface payload. Again, this is of two types. LAN side payload and WAN side payload. In failover, there are two failover rules. Primary and secondary. There are two failover states, active and standby. Okay. Primary firewall will be active. Okay. If primary firewall goes down, okay, secondary will become active and forward. Okay. To configure a minimum of two ASAs required. Then following needs should match in the ASA in HA. What are those? Number one,
The interface
Yeah.
should match
interfaces should match
the version, the
The-
hardware version, and the
hardware, model, license. Okay. Model should match. OS should match. The firewall mode should match. The security context mode should match. Okay, all these things should match. Then when failover happens, the failover state will change, but failover role will not change. That means primary will remain primary, secondary will remain secondary. Okay, that thing will not change. This is clear. Then after IP address and MAC address. In case of payload, the IP address and MAC address will swap from active to standby. Then there are two failover links. Number one is the stateless link that will exchange configuration and equalizing. And second one will be your state code, which will exchange in dynamic templates. And one thing, what it is, that all the configuration will be done on the primary. Whatever the configuration you will do it in the primary file. And one last point I will mention that to differentiate. So basically, like, how would you come to know that this link is stateless, this link is stateful? So during configuration, there is a keyword that we have to use. Okay. So differentiate between stateless and stateful link. The following keywords are used. So while configuring for stateless, the word that we will use is LAN. That this is the keyword, and for stateful, we will use the keyword as link. Okay, so in the command, if you see the LAN keyword, that means it says stateless link, and if you see the link, that means it is a stateful link. This is clear. Now let's talk about the configuration.
Actually, can you please explain from here, like when failover happens?
Whenever the failover will happen, state will change, but the failover role will not change. So see, we have two failover states. I haven't mentioned it here. Here it is. We have two failover states. Okay. So what does it simply means? See, I have two failover rules, primary and secondary.
Okay. Right. These are the roles.
These are the rules. Okay. These are the. I have two states, active, standby. These are what? States. Now, if my primary firewall fails, so what will happen? This standby will change to active, but this secondary will not change to primary.
Okay.
This is what I mean, that your role will not change. Role will remain as it is, but your failover state will change.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next point about that. So in case of failover, the IP address and MAC address, they will swap. So this active IP address, these will come here. Okay, that also I'll show you. Then any other doubt?
Yeah, that stateless equal to land.
Okay, this is the keyword. Right now, when we will do the configuration, that time I will show you this.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So it's kind of like configuration. First of all, R1 configuration, using configuration terminal, hostname, R1, LAN interface is 0 by 0, IP address 10.1.1.10.255.255.255.0, no shutdown. Here I will not configure any telnet or SS because my entire traffic will just try to reach from inside to outside only. I will just configure a route and one and via my primary. That means kind of I have given a default detail here. Now this is the configuration done for us inside. That is R1. Let's talk about the configuration of the internet. So for internet configuration, enable configuration terminal. Internet interface 0 by 0 IP address 11.1.1.255.255.255.0. No shutdown. IP route 11.1.1.10 again for the primary because these IP addresses will swap, so we don't have to change anything. And let me configure telnet and SSH. Cisco privilege 15 Cisco line VP line 384 login local port all IP domain name cisco.com. Cisco means generate RSA modulus 1.24. That's it. And for the ASA, whatever the configuration will do, so we'll do it on the ASA itself. So let me just take an access of these devices. And this is R1. Before this, let me take ASA access. So we have ASA1, ASA2, R1. This is internet. So, now, like I said, entire configuration, we will be doing it on the primary. So let's say as of now, in this one, we will keep it as a primary. And this one will say it is as secondary firewall. So we can do configuration in two ways. One is first do the entire configuration on the primary. Okay, that means first of all, you do the configuration, and second thing, you enable failover. This is one way. Second way is first you enable failover, and then you do the configuration. Both are fine. Anyway, whatever you're comfortable with, anything you can do. Okay. So let me go here. Let's paste the configuration for R1. This is the configuration. into white. Copy R1 configuration.
There's an error, invalid next hop address on the R1.
Sorry,
There's a, okay, that's because it's not configured.
where?
Okay.
Okay, invalid next. Yeah, because it is not configured. Okay, okay. I have given self IP address here. That is the mistake. Correct, correct. You're right. I have to configure 10.11.120. IP address. Default interface is 0.0. Now it's fine. IP address. Here it's good. Let's copy the configuration. Copy. And this is the internet configuration. Okay. Now see what we will do, how we are going to do the configuration for the ASA. Let's check the interfaces. So my failover interface is what? E2. Okay, E2 is my failover interface. So go here, configure the terminal, host name, ASA. Right now, if I say show failover, so you can see failover LAN interface not configured. Okay. So right now, failover is not configured here. Now we will configure it. How we will configure it? We will say failover LAN unit. Now, using this command, we will tell that, okay, is it primary firewall or secondary firewall? So my ASA1, I want to keep it as a primary firewall. So I will say primary. Done. Now I will tell my firewall that which interface is the failover interface. Okay. So I'll say failover LAN interface. Then just give any name to your interface. Okay, whatever you want to give. So right now, let's say we want to use this link as a stateless link. So let me name it stateless. Okay, and which interface it is? It is my E2 interface. So it says known failover configuration is cleared on this interface. That means now this interface is configured for failover. Now what I'll do, I'll assign the IP address here. Okay, so I'll say failover interface IP, and what is the name of the interface? Stateless. Okay. Now give the IP address. Like I said, entire configuration, we are doing it where? On the primary. Just failover configuration, we will have to do it on the primary and secondary. Remaining all the configuration, we will do it only on the primary. So in failover, when you want to assign the IP, the way of assigning IP is what? First of all, always you will assign the active IP address. So what is the IP address for the failover interface on the primary firewall? 10.2.2.10. So this is my IP address on the primary. What will be the subnet mask? 255.255.255.0. Then for the standby, what will be the IP address? 10.2.2.now. This is my payload configuration now. Okay. Again, see here what are the comments I have used. So payload, sorry, storage payload. Okay. So this is the commands I have used. And make sure, see right now how it is telling that this interface is administratively down. Okay, so bring this interface up. So you'll say interface equal no shutdown. Okay, and again if I say show payload, now this interface is up, and you can see my unit is primary, interface is stateless, Ethernet 2, and it is up. But right now I haven't, like I have configured the payload, but I haven't enabled it. Okay, so see here what is my entire configuration here so far on the ASA1. So I said enable configuration terminal. I give the host name as ASA. Okay. Then after this, I set interface equal. Just bring this interface up, no shutdown, and then we get these comments. This is clear so far, any doubt? Now same set of configuration we have to do. We don't have to change anything in these comments. Only one thing we will change, that instead of primary, that second will be what? Second unit will be what? Secondary. That's it. So let me go to the ASA2 and do the same configuration. And before that, let me copy this. So on the ASA2, hostname I'm not giving here. Why? Because it will automatically take from the primary. And this will be secondary. This is only the change that we are doing. You can compare the configuration, that what is the change we have. Only change is what? Instead of primary, I'm telling it that this is secondary. The way I'm assigning IP address does not change from the primary to secondary. Always your primary IP will come first, secondary IP or standby IP will come after. Yani, you can say like active IP will come first and standby IP will be the second. So let me copy this configuration. And let's go to the ASA. Okay. So this is my ASA2. Here what I'll say, duplicate terminal, interface, A2, no shutdown. Because on both sides, we have kept the same interface. Here also E2, here also E2. Then I will say failure LAN unit second. This is my secondary unit. Failure LAN interface. Name stateless I'm giving it. And my interface is E2. Then I will assign IP. Failure interface IP. My interface name is stateless. Active firewall IP will be 10.2.10 and standby firewall IP will be 10.2 long. This is done. Let's check show payload. So here also it is up. Now all we need to do is what? We need to enable the payload. We have configured payload on both the firewalls. Now we just need to enable it. How do you enable payload? You just go and do the command payload. For spelling mistake. Here give payload. Here also say payload. Spelling mistake. Now payload has been enabled. Let's see what happens. No active mate detected. ASA1 says no active mate detected. But why? Because it itself is the active. While if you see ASA2, says what? Detected an active meet. That means it has found out an active firewall. And what it says? Beginning configuration replication from the meet. And ASA1 will say beginning configuration replication sending to meet. So ASA1 is sending the configuration to the ASA2. Okay. And you will see once the configuration replication is done. Earlier, my hostname was Cisco ASA. And now what it is? Once the configuration replication is done, now what it is? It is ASA. So up till now, we just have done one configuration, that we have done hostname and we have just enabled the failover. Okay. Now, whatever the configuration you want to do for the inside interface, outside interface, all the configuration you will do in the primary firewall. Okay. So see here, let's say I will say interface. Okay. And let's say what is my inside interface? My inside interface is E0 and outside interface is E1. Okay. See here, interface E0, and I will say name it inside. Okay. What it says? Security level for inside set to 100 default. Do you see here seen on the ASA2? Instant replication is there. Okay. Then right now, if you check here, show interface IPv. Okay. So only I have IP address on the E2 interface. Right now, I'm going to assign it to E0 also. So see here how you will assign the IP address. You will see IP address. What is the IP address you want to assign? On the active inside 10.1.1.10. And standby IP address will be 10.1.1.11. So I'll say 10.1.1.10, 255.255.255.0, and standby IP address is what? 10.1.1.11. This configuration, where I am doing it, I'm doing it on the ASA1. Configuration is done. Now let me say no shutdown. And you just come here and check. Is it configured? Configured, right? Same thing, you can do it with the outside interface. You can say interface E1, name it outside, IP address 11.1.1.10, 255.255.255.0. Standby IP address will be 11.1.1.11. And then you shut down. And check here again. The IP address is configured. Is it clear? If you go and write the configuration on the ASA1, automatically the configuration for ASA2 is also written. Okay. Now let's go and try to take an access. And let me also say fix up protocol ICMP so that we can. Okay, I said fix up protocol ICMP. Automatically this command executed here also. Now let me try from here. Saying now normal 125. Enable cooking. Take a telnet. System. I am able to take the access. This is clear.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Now, right now, the communication is already going on. Let's check what is the failover status. Show failover. Now my failover is on. This host, it is primary. Why? Because this is ASA1. So this host, it is primary and active. Inside interface IP is 10.1.1.10. Outside interface IP is 11.1.1.10. And these interface right now, these are in the monitored states. Okay. The other host, what is the other host? It is secondary. And what is the state? Standby and ready. And these are the IP addresses. And you see, stateful failover, the link is unconfigured because right now we are using only stateless. Okay. Another way to show failover state. This is also the command with which you can check that this host, it is primary and active, and the other host secondary, and it is standby and ready. Okay. And so far there is no failover. So now what we will do, we will perform the failover. That means our ASA1 is going to fail. Okay. And you can see from here right now I have the telnet session. So since we have stateless link, the connection will be dropped. Okay. So I have already written the configuration here. Again, let me write one more time. Okay. So now what? Your ASA1 will go down. Now your primary firewall is down. So failover, or we can read, it should show a pop-up that it will change to active. Show failover state. Do you see what happened? Right now we are on the ASA2. It says this host, it is secondary, standby and ready. The other host is primary, and it is in the active state. And as soon as the failover timeout will happen, you see here what it will say, switching to active. Okay. Now you check. It says this host, it is secondary. So did the failover role change? The role did not change. The secondary ASA2, it is still secondary, but the state changed to active. The other host, it is primary, and what is the state? Failed. The reason? Communication failure. What was the date and time? This is the date and time. Okay, so this is how it will show you, and also you can check show payload. So this from normal, it will change to unknown. Okay, and you see your ASA2, it is waiting for the ASA1 to come up. Okay, now when ASA1 will come up, okay, now, okay, before that, let me also show you the telnet connection. Here you can see the telnet connection is dropped. Why? Because we did not have the stateful link. Clear? Now your ASA1 is coming back up. So when ASA1 will come up again, it will remain in the standby state. Okay, there is no preemption concept here. Okay, it will remain in the standby state until or unless your ASA2 fails. Okay, that means what is the state? This is right now active. And when this will come up, this will go to standby. It will not come back to prime active. But manually, we can use a command and make it active also. That also I'll show you. Let it come up. So this came up. See what it says? Detected an active meet and beginning configuration replication from meet. That means it is replicating the configuration from the ASA tool. Now check show payload. Okay. And end of configuration replication. And see, this is the host who is primary and it is syncing the configuration. You can see now it is what? Standby and ready. Okay. So your primary will go to standby only. It will not become active automatically, which simply means that there is no preemption concept. Okay. Now from unknown, these have changed to normal and this waiting state will change to monitored. Okay. We'll just wait for it once they have the preemption. Okay. So payload state. So the primary is now on the standby mode and secondary is on active. Okay. Yeah. See, now it is back to monitor. And right now it didn't become automatically active. So if you want to make it active manually, all you need to do is leave the command payload active. And you see, switching to active. And this one is switching to standby. To payload. Now you can see the primary is active again. This is clear. Yes or no? Okay. And whatever the configuration you will do it on the active firewall. Okay. You cannot do it on the standby firewall. See, if this firewall is standby and if I try to say interface E4, so it will give you warning. Configuration replication is not performed from standby unit to active unit, and the configuration they are no longer synchronized. So whatever the configuration you try to do it in the standby, those configuration will not be replicated. Those will not take place. Okay. Now let's do one thing. We'll go and use one stateful link. Okay. So for that, we need to stop these firewalls, or should we create a new lab itself? Okay, before that, config. Once you enable payload, then ASA1 configuration you can do interface, usually name of insert, run one time. So this is the configuration we have done for that. active standby with stateless link only. To enable the failover, you can give the command failover. This one is done. Now we need to use a stateful link. This all configurations are written. Okay, let's do it in the same lab only. Let me stop. Can we yes, you go on the ASA2 and you give the command failover active and it will become an active. Okay. Should we do it in this lab only or we should create a new lab? What do you think? We'll do it in this one only. Now this one is a C plus. Equal. Okay, C is up. Yes, so one. Yes, okay. Yes, this one is solved. So R1, R2 configurations we have already done. That is the internet. ASA1 and ASA2, they already have failover enabled. Okay, we just need to attach the stateful link configuration. Now, sometimes, one question can be asked in the interviews that you have two ASA firewalls in the HA, okay, and they both are started at the same time, okay. These both firewalls, they will come up at the same time. So in that case, which one will be the active firewall? When both the firewalls, they will come up at the same time, which firewall will be the active firewall?
So that is in case of stateful, when the stateful link is there, or
Consider both are there, stateful, stateless, both are there.
but we'll be manually configuring the
Sorry.
will be
Yeah, you have already configured HA. Both firewalls were off. Now both are coming up at the same time. Then which firewall will be active firewall? Always remember your primary will be the active. Okay. If your primary failed and your secondary is there, so secondary will become active. Then even after that, if your primary is coming back up again, it will not change to active, then it will remain in standby. But if both are coming up at the same time, then your primary will become the active. See, like right now, both firewalls, they came up at the same time. It is saying no active might detected. ASA2 says detected and active. Okay. So they are already in failover. So failover, primary is active, secondary is standby. So what is the extra configuration that we will require in case you are using a stateful link?
interface stateful.
Just this thing. Okay. Instead of LAN, we will use the keyword link. Okay, name anything you can use, but right now let's use stateful so that we can differentiate. Interface is what E3, IP address is 10.3.3.10, and this will be 3.3 LAN.
And the interface IP, that we need to change stateful.
Yeah, this one you need to change stateful. Just this much two lines extra command is there. That's it. Nothing else. Okay, so let's copy these two lines. Primary is it. Okay, interface is not up. E3 interface is not there. How can interface I will be failure then this interface keyword will not be here in this command. This thing will not be there. So you will directly give the name stateful and then physical interface E3. Okay, like this it is. Then you will give the IP address in this one. Failover stateful interface field because interface E3 noted down. Okay, this also we have to give interface E3 not shut down. And same thing here also. And then US thing will not be there. failover stateful interface became okay. Okay, and you see, since these are already in failover, so automatically your stateful link is also configured because they are already in failover. This is clear. That means whatever the configuration we are doing on the primary, automatically it is getting reflected on the secondary. Is that clear? Now what? Let's take a telnet access, and before that, let me write the configuration. And let me go here. LAN 125. I have the access. Now let's say your primary firewall goes down. Stop. So your primary firewall is down. Your secondary is still up. Wait for it. This will become active. Switching to active. So lower state. So you can see secondary, active, primary, field, and if you check show payload. So here you will see all the connection table entries also. Okay, that transmitted, received, okay, like this about TCP connection. So you can see one TCP connection to ARC table. Okay, so all these kind of things they have exchanged. And did our connection drop? See, so interface IP3, so IP interface to be. So our connection, it did not drop. Why? Because this time your dynamic entries are also getting synchronized. Is it clear? Okay. Now let it come out. So far any doubt? When you're using stateless link, you are using stateless and stateful link. So when you're using only stateless, your dynamic entries, they will not be synchronized. And if there is an ongoing communication going on, the communication will be dropped. The connection will be dropped. But if you're using stateful link, then your dynamic entries, they will also be replicated. Okay. So in that case, what will happen? Your connection will not drop. Now we will see how you can use a single interface as a stateful and stateless. Once this firewall comes up. This is for active and standby. Let me, okay, again, active and standby only. But when you're using a single link, see what will be the change. We have to use the same interface E2. Same interface E2 we will use. Okay. Name also we will keep same because you cannot keep two different names for the same interface. So that means here also you will say stateless. Okay. So let me show you practically, then it will be more clear. detected an active mate, beginning configuration of application from mate. End of the configuration of application. Now, state both are fine. Still syncing the configuration. Still it is syncing the configuration. Change to number. So you see, these are all the dynamic entries that it will share, like TCP connection, UDP, XLATE, ARP, IPv6, VPN. That means it will maintain everything. Your connections will not drop, and the clients, they will never even come to know that, okay, one of the firewall went down. Normal waiting. Okay, let's make it active. Reload, active. This is how you can make a standby firewall as an active. So reload, state, primary active, standby ready. Okay, reload. So once it will be changing to monitor, then we have to go to the rest of the configuration. Still it is waiting. We just clear out all the configurations. Clear, configure out. Okay, I'm removing all the configuration. Clear, configure out. Okay, so you can see once the configuration is removed, your ASA2 is back to Cisco ASA, and ASA1 is also back to Cisco ASA. That means no configuration is there. Now, let's use a single link, and I'll show you. Now we will use a single link. Stop it. Stop it. So this E3 link, I will delete this one. And these IP addresses, I'll delete. And this one will be acting as both. Stateless and stateless. Start it. Start it. Now see here what will be the change. Single link as stateless and stateful. So this was our failover configuration, right? What will be the change? You will bring the interface up since it will be single interface. So that means P3 will not be there. Okay. You will say failover LAN unit, whatever it is, primary or secondary. Let's say on ASA1, you will say primary. You will name the interface. This time we are using it as a stateless and stateful both. So let's say you can name it failover. Okay. Or simply F. That means failover. Okay, this is the name I have assigned to the interface because this time single interface we are using it as stateless and stateful, and I don't want to confuse with the name. So that means I have said failover LAN interface FO E2. And same thing I will say for this one also. Failover link, name will be same. Name will be same, interface will be same. Okay. And then IP address. So name of the interface is what? Failover, .FO. And this is your configuration when you want to use a single link. Now this is on the, let's say ASA1. Okay. And after this, you will enable the failover. And same configuration, we will do it on the ASA2. ASA2. Instead of primary, all you will change is what? Secondary. This is only the change. Is it clear what we will do in the configuration?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. So let's see if the devices are up. Okay, cool. So I'll say configuration family, hostname, basic. Now let's enable failover. So I'll say failover LAN unit. Now this unit I want to configure it as a primary. I'll say failover LAN interface name echo interface is E2. Then I'll say failover link. My link name is what? Echo and interface is what? E2. Okay, same. Then I'll say failover interface IP. Okay, and what is the interface name? FO. Active IP address will be 10.2.10, 255, 255, 2550, and standby IP address will be 10.2.2 now. Okay, so now if I say show history, okay, we have to bring the interface up. Interface into neutral. And if I say show payload, now you can see unit is primary and the interface is up. Okay. And if I say show history, you can see this is the same configuration that we have done, just 4-line configuration. And same 4-line configuration is here. Same configuration. Now let's go and do the same configuration on the ASA2. Configure terminal, interface EC, no shutdown, failover LAN, interface, name is FO, interfaces, failover link, name is FO, interfaces, failover, interface IP. Okay. I haven't mentioned the Unix. First of all, failover line unit. This unit is what? Secondary. Failover interface IP 10 to this name FO IP is 10 to 10 255 255 2550. Standby IP will be 10 to log. Okay. Show failure. So this interface E2 is up. Now all we need to do is just enable the payload. Give the command payload. Here also give the command payload. Wait for it. No active meet detected. Here it should say detected an active meet. Beginning configuration replication from meet. Beginning configuration replication sending to meet. Okay. So they are replicating the configuration. End of configuration replication. So that means now ASA2 name should host name from Cisco ASA, it should change to. Okay. This one should change now to ASA. Okay. To payload, and you can see that both configuration is there, stateful failover also, and the stateless failover also. Okay, you can see the failover LAN interface. Okay, so LAN interface F0 E2, sorry, FO E2, and link also FO E2. Both configuration is there. Now all we need to do, like earlier, we just have to go and provide the IP addresses and everything, like interface, and what is my inside and outside interface. Inside E0, outside E1. So interface E0, inside IP address, channel 1110, 255.255.255.0, standby IP address, and 11 long. No shot. Interface E1, name it, outside, IP address, 1110, 255.255.255.0, standby, 11 long, and no shot. Okay, I haven't shown you that one thing that these IP addresses will get swapped. Okay, this thing also I have to show you. Show interface IP B. So IP address, you can see that on the interface E0, my IP address is 10.11.10. Okay, and if I say show interface E0, my MAC address is this. Okay, so let me do one thing. I will copy the MAC address. This is the MAC address. Okay, and on the outside interface, this is the MAC address. And this is the MAC address on the outside interface. About ASA2, to interface E0. This is the MAC address. and about the interface E1. This is the matrix. Okay. And also let's take session point. Line 11.25 successful. Okay. So I have an ongoing session. So right now, if you see on my first of all, let me write configuration. If I say show interface IP brief, so on my primary firewall, all IPs are .10. On my secondary firewall, show interface IP brief, all IPs are .log. This part is clear so far. Now what will happen? The failover will happen. Okay. ASA1 will fail. Stop it. Okay. So failover happened. Now this is ASA2. Earlier these were the MAC addresses here and IP addresses. Once it will change to active, then we will see. Switching to active. Now see here, show interface IP3. Do you see what happened? My inside and outside interface IP from 11, it became what? 10, correct? From 11, it became 10. Now, if I check the MAC addresses, show interface A0. Do you see? Even on the ASA2, the MAC addresses, inside interface MAC address, you can see. You can verify. Okay. Show interface E1. This is my outside interface MAC address. And my ASA1 is still off. Is it clear that the IP address and MAC addresses, they will get swapped? And they will get swapped for the inside outside DMZ interface only. Failover interface with IP addresses or MAC addresses, they will not get swapped. See here again. My failover interface is still .11 only. Okay. And now if your ASA1 will come up, on the ASA1, what you will see? You will see these IP addresses and MAC addresses. And did the connection drop? So the connection also did not drop. This is clear. Okay, great. So this is your active and standby concept. So three scenarios I have explained. One, when you're using only stateless link. Second, when you're using stateless and stateful link, but separate interfaces. And third scenario, when you're using a single link as a stateful and stateless. So these are the three scenarios that we have discussed today. So now this is, it will replicate the configuration. Detected an active mate. Beginning configuration replication from mate. End of configuration replication. Show interface IP. This is ASA1. But you see, we have .11 IP address. And if we check the MAC address, show interface A0. So we have the MAC address of the ASA2. Okay. See here. Okay. So this is your active and standby concept. Now tomorrow we will start with the active concept. Okay. So we have now few concepts are remaining. Okay. So next week we'll finish with your ASA. What are the concepts remaining? We have your active. Okay. Then we have your interface level payload, where we will cover both LAN and WAN side. Then we have one concept about clustering. We have one concept about transparent firewall. And then we have about NPF. And then last concept, I use zone-based firewall. These are the concepts remaining. Okay. Then we will be done with the ASA. All right, guys. So if you don't have any doubt, just say clear. Then we'll wind up the session. Clear, right?
Sir, these
Yeah.
concepts, contexting,
Mm-hmm.
HA, all
Mm-hmm.
will aim in next generation firewall. So,
Yes, they are there. Okay. HA concept is there in your zone-based firewall.
okay,
Sorry, not zone-based. I mean next generation firewall. Like in FTD also we'll discuss about HA. Okay.
okay.
All right. Okay then. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day, guys.